Well, the world is a dumpster fire, and nothing here makes sense. And you vacillate between crippling fear and constant self-defense. And nothing's right and nothing's good, and you're paralyzed with grief. Don't kill yourself, just have a cup of coffee.
Welcome to Coffee Over Suicide, the dramedy podcast about mental illness and choosing life over death, one cup of coffee at a time. I'm your host, Chris Parker Howard, and today on the show we have got breathing expert and general all-around guru of things, Hannes Bend. I'm sorry to come out of the gate with so many uhs, ums, and stumbles, but that's kind of where I'm at in this given moment. And if I'm trying to do anything here, it's get people out of their comfort zone and doing things they're uncomfortable with. And that's exactly where I was at with this conversation with this gentleman today, because he was talking to me from outdoors, walking around in Florida. As such, there were all kinds of sounds. There were construction and ambulances and fire trucks and wind and bugs and birds. And this conversation was beautiful. It was amazing. It really got me out of my comfort zone, and I had to pay attention. You'll hear in the sound of the quality, I was able to clean it up so we can hear each other just fine. But during the conversation, it was kind of loud and sort of noisy, and it took me out of the sterile environment of this studio and put me right in the streets of Florida. It was a great conversation, and it's really powerful, the things that your breathing can do for you. And I'm a firm believer in this. And so I was very happy to have him on the show and to talk a little bit about that, as well as the technology that he's developing to make using your computer a little bit better for you. He'll get into more of that. If you want to get into more of that, you can also find all of the links to all of the everything that you need from Hannes Bend at hannesbend.com, HANNESBEND.com. Now, before we get into that conversation, I do want to take a minute to thank everybody who's showing up for the Thursday meetings. If you're thinking about it and you're on the fence, show up. You don't have to show your face. You don't even have to use your real name. You can be a fly on the wall and just check things out, see if it's for you. It meets every single Thursday. You can find out more at coffeeoversuicide.com/talk or go to meetup.com and find the Coffee Over Suicide Thursday Zoom. It's not recorded. It's just for us. It's like group therapy without the therapist. So I highly encourage you to show up. It's a great time, and I'd love to meet you. Let's talk. Let's have a cup of coffee and hash some stuff out. So, without further ado, I'll stop talking here, and we'll get into this conversation with Hannes Bend.
Good morning. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. It's been kind of a strange day. We're in the beginning of a new year. There's a lot of reflection that goes on. You know, you think about the year that's passed. You think about the year that's coming. It's pretty easy for most people I know to measure things in those spans of time that, you know, the Gregorian calendar has decided this is what we're doing. I mean, it's all just time and the time that we have, and that's all great. But I'm a little introspective about that today. A friend of mine just passed, and it's been kind of something that we were aware was going to happen, you know. But it's never quite something that you're ready for, even when you're ready for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But seeing all of the love that his family has for him, and the way that love has kind of superseded the grief, at least temporarily. I'm sure it's all going to come in waves, you know? It's oddly been kind of wonderful.
Sorry, what?
It's oddly been kind of wonderful. Just to see a life that was well lived and full of love.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah. So where am I talking to you from?
I'm in Florida right now. It just reminded me what you're sharing right now. A friend of mine passed away in April 21.
Yeah.
Dear friend of mine. She was such a sweetheart, and and you couldn't even we couldn't gather and mourn these days. It's hopefully a little bit different. It was in April last year. It's still very much in lockdown, so our whole community, friendship around her, we couldn't meet, so we had to kind of mourn apart, and that made it harder. So
yeah, definitely. So tell me. I love the fact that I see all of this wonderful blue sky behind you. Tell me a little bit about when did you arrive in Florida, as this is the place?
I decided on short notice to go here for New Year's Eve, because also I have a lot of meetings with people here for my startup, because we're just starting our round, and investor meetings and partnership meetings. So, and apparently thousands of New Yorkers moved to Miami during the pandemic, and I wasn't aware of that. So I was put in this Telegram channels and groups on startup peers and investors being in Miami, and I thought, why not going to Miami for New Year's Eve? And it's all outdoors. There was a concert here. We joined on the 31st outside. It was beautiful at the beach. And then yesterday I had the first meetings, and today, so it's been kind of nice. It's been different than in New York, where you kind of meeting everything. It's just it needs to be indoor, winter, cold. And so in here in Miami, it's just everything happens outdoor, and most things. So it's a different perspective on the pandemic here in Florida in general, but it's also then safe when it's outside. So.
Yeah. I guess it shouldn't surprise me that I'm talking to you outside, because you have a particular way of thinking outside of the box that I find very interesting. I connected with you a couple of months ago. Well, I guess about a month ago now, and just sort of started following you around digitally and trying to figure out who this guy is. And you've got a hell of a story. And I would like to just get into it. Talk to me a little bit about where you're from and what led you to do what you're doing now.
Oh yeah, thanks so much. I think we all have everybody who's right now here listening, and everybody I think on this planet right now has an incredible story. So maybe mine is a little bit more visible based on what I do. I had birth trauma, and then I had very intense anxiety and depression up until my early 30s. So even though I was successful in my career and got a visa for the US, I was just very struggling with a lot of, depression. I felt very disconnected. So it took me years of intense meditation and yoga and mindfulness practice to then live a healthy and happy life. So I'm very just grateful to be alive these days. And I started then multiple technologies, and now my startup to help share things or create technologies that help everybody hopefully feel a bit more relaxed and more joyful.
I love the way that you just talk so matter-of-factly about all of that. I'm really fascinated. So have you seen a big difference in the way mental health discussions happen here versus there?
In Europe, you mean, where I grew up?
Like what is the conversation like?
It's hard for me. I've been here now for almost 10 years in the US. And a lot of things changed over there, especially with the pandemic and stuff.
Yeah.
I think like when I was here half of the year, maybe 12 years ago, and then half of the year in Europe, I think it was really hard to talk about anything mental health related. It was just very alienating, and still, I guess, is in many ways. So I was always trying to push through everything and to kind of like ignore it and not share with anybody. I also didn't really know it was depression because I felt like that my whole life, almost like very disconnected, very like isolated, and it was really needed to be more aware of my breath, of my body, of my presence, to learn that actually most people don't feel, or at least back then, I mean now there's like an increase in depression and anxiety, but that most people weren't feeling like that miserable like I did.
Yeah.
And so because if you're like used to that as a norm, I thought like most other people would feel like that too. And so I feel like in the US and Europe, hopefully that's a little bit shifting, that people are more open to sharing, their friends at least, going to therapy, going to all kinds of mindfulness events or whatever helps them feel better in a peaceful and harmless way.
It does seem like it's been trending in that direction for the past 5 years or so, at least, where it's really becoming a much more common conversation. People being willing to talk about things in order to fix it versus, just tamping it all down in order to paste over it and try to ignore that it's happening at all. It's just not a sustainable model of behavior. But tell me a little bit about because you did mention breathing there, and one of the things that I discovered a long time ago, and these things are related. I discovered a long time ago that you can change the shape of your brain physically and literally by changing your thoughts. It takes time, it takes practice. But you can actually almost exercising your brain to get muscles, right? It's like you work your body, you get muscles, you exercise your thoughts differently, and you can change the shape of your brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the ways that people do that. So when I started hearing you talk about the changes in the body that can occur through breathing, I was immediately intrigued by that. Because I've seen similar things happen. You can absolutely change your being through things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of, things that people take for granted all the time. So talk to me a little bit about how you discovered breathing as something that you needed to be focusing on.
Yeah, that was a journey. Like I started with yoga. I had a great yoga teacher. She really emphasized on yoga alignment with breath. But, it's a little bit like, you sync your movement with your breath. Yeah. And I did Vipassana meditation for many years, like those 10-day silent retreats, a few hours a day. But you observe your breathing. So it wasn't as active. So I feel like I needed an intense yoga practice. I needed an intense meditation practice. I always needed to go on the mat, sit down, do those retreats. And it was really only until 2014, 2015 when I discovered Wim Hof method and my friend Wim Hof, his breathing technique, where I feel like, oh wow, this is very integrated, and it got me kind of to a very a state of relaxation much faster, and I felt the immediate impacts. And then I was like, wow, this is basically a breathing technique mostly. And then I did it so much, especially with ice baths, that I became aware of my breathing all the time. So not when I'm sleeping, but so that's kind of when I learned breathing, and now I feel like I never want to lose that awareness of my breathing, and I feel like it's always there. Wim talks about it as second nature, so it's kind of always there as an awareness. So it's almost like whenever I'm getting stressed, I notice my breathing might get more shallow, so I can guide myself back to a more relaxed state through breathing.
Yeah,
and because it. And even and also, as you mentioned, there's blood chemistry changes. Studies on the Wim Hof method have shown, and others have shown that Other studies have shown that we change our pH levels with different breathing. We can change our blood oxygen saturation, like all kinds of, brain frequencies are changing. So it's very, very interesting what breathing does. And there's not so much knowledge about it because nobody kind of makes money off that so much. There's like more money to be made in like selling pharmaceutical and stuff. Not that it's bad, it's just like there's more in industry. So there's more money being put in marketing and advertisement of those studies. But breathing techniques are for free, everybody, available. And if I've seen, thousands of people, reported or even way more online who like said, breathing techniques have really changed my life. And it also, like, as the first thing, it helps oneself. Anybody who listens, like, focusing on breathing, it's like, oh, I'm away from my thoughts. I have something internally inside of me I can redirect my focus at. And then with deeper breathing, with belly breathing, I can actually like calm my nervous system down. And at the same time, with deeper breathing, improve my immune system too. So it's very underutilized still. And we're all breathing way too shallow, including me, on an average basis. So often that's breathing in my chest. So, and that was like one thing where it's like, oh, I don't have to spend a few hours meditating and stuff. I can have this as a continuous guided meditative experience, like to be aware of my breathing, pay attention to how relaxed my body is. And yeah, like I haven't gotten sick in 6-7 years or something.
Nice.
Very healthy, feel more peaceful. I'm sure sometimes stress comes and like I'm only human too, but
yeah.
So
well, it happens to all of us. It's part of the human experience. You experience all of these different emotions. Sometimes they're serving you, and sometimes they're not. But they're all there for a reason. They're all there for a reason. It's just whether or not they're good in the moment.
Yeah.
But as far as the breathing is concerned, that is something that has been kind of a constant in my life without even really knowing it. And I think a lot of people have similar. I mean, obviously everybody breathes, but the very idea of using your breath to soothe when things are chaotic or going wrong, focus on your breathing. Lamaze classes for mothers giving birth, focus on your breathing. There are so many little things that you can do where breathing can assist. Weightlifting, just about everything. Breathing is so important in exercise. It's important for just about everything. I mean, you wouldn't live without it, but as far as assisting in breathing correctly, talk to me a little bit about your experience with anxiety and what that looked like for you before you started practicing this. Like what was your situation like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to note on that, like also like basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan.
Yeah.
But if you see like, taking their shots, they're oftentimes like taking an exhale and then they're shooting. So they might not think about breathing, but they're actually doing a breathing technique. I only recall this. I felt very disconnected. I just felt like my mind was racing, and I feel like I was my racing mind when I did the awareness. So I was just like the thoughts that came up. I was like identified with them. I thought like this is my reality. When I thought badly about something, it was like this is my reality right now, and I didn't really have anything else to go in my own reality, or I had to go to distract myself, entertain myself. Like this, like it's a loud noise, and like stress. Like pay attention to that stress because you don't have any other tool to go to, and so breathing, especially, gave me like a focus, like something to go to. Like it's almost like looking at these trees here, like it's almost like a tree you can always like lean next to, and then literally breathe in the fresh air. And I feel like I was just so disconnected, and I was like waking up in the morning like that, going to bed like this. So anybody who has depression and anxiety, like it's I highly recommend breathing techniques and just learning how to breathe deeper. I've been there, and it's really hard. And when we were not giving, and it's nobody's fault, we were not giving the tools in the society to self-regulate and to deal with depression in a way that is outside of the pharmaceutical realm. And anybody who listens who struggles, like I really just highly recommend breathing techniques and any relaxing techniques. And nobody's alone in that, and it's really possible to recover from that. Even though in that moment, I remember it felt like that's the reality, it's the ultimate reality. I can never get out of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm miserable now and forever. The world is a bad place, and so it's really possible to not feel like that anymore on a consistent basis, and to get over that for good. So,
now, when you're focusing on your breath in those moments, are you talking to yourself at all? Are you assessing the situation to verify how valid the fear is or the depression? I mean, what's going on in your mind at that time? Are you just kind of setting things down so that you can see them later, or what's going on?
You mean like when I had depression?
Yeah, when the depression was bad, and you were, for instance, using these techniques to help yourself. I'm trying to think about the ways in which someone might start to employ something like this.
So I started with yoga, like yoga that was really focused on breathing, and then you do like a movement, and you focus on, while doing the movement, focusing on, like, you do it on the inhale, you do it on the exhale, and that helped me a lot. And then I did Vipassana meditation, where you observe your breathing, but it's still, you don't work on the breathing itself.
Yeah.
So I felt better after the yoga practice, after the Vipassana meditation, but there was some kind of duality, some kind of observation in there, which then you might come back to, like, after that experience, like, feel better, but you had, like, I might still had that, remember, like, 8 years, 10 years ago, when I started it, and that was the time where I shifted, like, so you kind of like go to those experiences, feel better, then it gets worse, you go back to the experiences. But then I did it so much that over time I became so aware of my breathing. But now to shortcut that and to say, like, nobody has to like do this years of practice, I would really recommend learning to do belly breathing, because then you're like actively guiding your breathing. So when I'm talking now, I can be like, I'll take a sigh, a letting go exhale, which already I know the studies on this, that creates twice as much air flowing into my lungs on the next inhale. And then when I'm taking an inhale now, while I'm talking, I can expand my belly first. And, even though I'm like, oh my God, I'm public speaking, maybe, hundreds of people might see this, I might get heart racing, but I can calm myself down by expanding my belly and my chest, and, just kind of like thereby, while I'm speaking and having maybe this racing thoughts, I know that my heart rate is calmer, my body is becoming more relaxed. So that's what I would recommend anybody, like belly breathing, Wim Hof breathing, but a lot of people who do Wim Hof method breathing, they breathe through cellars, through their chest.
Yeah.
So I'd always recommend breathing through the belly, and learning that, like the diaphragmatic belly breathing, and just like learning to take a letting go exhale. It sounds so simple, and this is like, there must be something else to it, but I think it's just sometimes just learning how to let go. It's like when I did breathing classes, like I've guided thousands of people the last 8 years, like it's sometimes really hard for some people to learn to take a letting go exhale. Like, and it took me very many years too, when I realized, like, oh my God, I was always trying to like push out air. So I was always holding on to some tension.
Yeah.
But there's a beauty as an experience, and in general on like just like a letting go exhale. And that's sometimes like just this letting go is kind of like we trust, almost like we trust gravity, we trust the earth to kind of catch our lungs, right? So you like, and then relax our muscles thereby. And so it's something as simple as learning how to take a deep belly inhale and a letting go exhale that really did the trick. And when I realized, like, oh, I don't have to push out air, I don't have to hold on all the time. I can just open up on the inhale, and then the letting go exhale, I can just release everything. So I think if somebody does that for like a few minutes, they might feel immediately better. Even it just like might just be 5 of those breaths. And so I think I would recommend that, because it took me years of learning to, I did this with yoga, I did this with meditation, and then I did it with Wim Hof, but then what's belly breathing? So there was a lot of things I had to process and to kind of simplify. And if somebody like struggles with it, that's the way I would say, just like if they have breathing, like an active deep inhale and a kind of like a passive letting go exhale, but kind of not going too much into the observing things, which is like Vipassana breathing meditation and stuff. Like I would more recommend yoga, breath meditation, because like when you observe it, you might have still like a shallow breathing pattern, but you don't want to like keep breathing shallow. Like the purpose of like getting out of depression, out of anxiety, living more healthier and happier is to like really just hone in on the belly breathing. And for the ones who try to keep a 6-pack, allow yourself for a few breaths to like really expand your belly. And in the beginning of my sessions, I always say like, it's a 6-pack free zone, please let go of any tension on your belly.
Yeah.
And, because like, we're so trained to like tighten up our belly and to like be tense and only breathe through our chest. So letting go of that for a few moments brings also immediately some relief and joy.
Oh, that's, I mean, it's so amazing that you say that too, because one of the things that you have to do when you sing is you have to expand your belly to sing. I mean, it's a thing that, and a lot of singers have a lot of vanity too. So it's this push and pull, but it's so true. You've really got to focus on letting that ego go and think more about just focus on the breathing and let that take you where it wants to go. It's important to do in singing. It's important to do in letting go of anxiety. It's two things that I learned. And one of those things that I used to hear people tell me, I started singing in like punk rock bands and stuff. And so it was all just right out of the neck, and just, I wasn't doing it right at all. I learned no technique. I couldn't hold, and I was playing drums at the same time too. So it was just kind of like, it was just brutal. Just difficult. And I was making it difficult. And I would have friends tell me, no, you got to go from the diaphragm and, learn how to take a breath and things like that. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I honestly can't even follow what you're trying to tell me to do. And then I had a friend explain it to me in layman's terms and just kind of walk me through it. And that was really a big light bulb moment. Like, no, like when you're pushing your belly out, breathe from your stomach. Like, think about it like that. And it really changed everything. It changed a lot in my public speaking, my ability to have conversations without, coming up short for breath or anything like that. And then when I started in practice of meditation and yoga, which I'm still terrible at, it informed everything. But that's what's beautiful about it, is that you don't have to be perfect at it. It's kind of a wonderful thing to be able to chase. It's a good thing to be able to say, this is something I can get better at. This is something that it's not the end. There is no end result. There is only improvement.
Exactly. I love that. Like, it reminds me of like the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody thinks like I'm really good at this and that. Like I think for me, almost like the purpose of yoga and meditation, if you do it a lot, you become like an expert meditator because of the amount of hours you did or something.
Yeah.
It's almost, you want to gain that like sense of wonder and awe. It's like, oh my God, like there's a beautiful flower. Oh my God, there's a beautiful song and sound. Or, but like almost like discovering beauty in everything. And I feel like that's like the beautiful thing. And then you're like, oh, I've done this in a different way. Now I do this posture in yoga this way or meditate this way. And it's always remaining that sense of awe and wonder, I think, is like the beauty of all of that. And it doesn't matter, like for somebody else, dancing is a meditation. For somebody else, it's, it's playing drums. And I feel as long as it sparks curiosity and care for each other and, joy of being present and being being in awe of being.
Yeah.
And that's what I know I did not have during depression and anxiety, because somebody could tell me like, oh, look at this beautiful thing, Hannes. And it's like, what, is this just a thing or something? And so I think that came back, and it can come back. And so, I mean, obviously I'm a fan of like, breathwork can get you there.
Yeah.
There's different ways, yeah.
But I'm a big fan of that too. I mean, any sort of tools that you can get at your disposal, just out of yourself, ways that you can improve yourself. Because I'm a firm believer that there's a place for medications and therapists and things like that. Different people have different needs. But I'm also a person who had that idea several years ago. If I'm stranded on a desert island with no medicine and no therapist, is my brain going to kill me? Am I just going to kill myself because I've got none of these tools? And I came up with the idea that, these things might not necessarily go away, but how do I learn how to live with them? How do I learn how to live within this body that functions like this? So if I'm going to be wired for depression, or I'm going to be wired for sadness, I'm going to be wired for suicidal thoughts, how do I live with those things instead of letting them overwhelm me? And one of the very first things I discovered was the square breathing technique. And it was a real game changer because I had pretty severe social anxiety. I could go somewhere and perform, but I couldn't go to the store to buy bread. And so it was a very weird thing. And having to get to that place where I could just focus on something like my breath and just, I'm going to go. And it feels so ridiculous to me now. But at the time, it felt like life or death. It felt like, I felt so much trauma just going into the store, like, okay, it was like I was going into a battlefield. All right, I'm going in here. So we're just going to breathe in. We're going to hold. We're going to breathe out. We're going to hold. And we're going to repeat. And we're just going to try to slow that heart rate down. We're not going to pay attention to that guy over there who looks like he's looking at us. We're not going to pay attention to the people around us. We're not going to pay attention to the fact that, maybe I should have worn different clothes today. We're not going to pay attention to these things. We're just going to focus on the breath and the thing that needs to get done. And then at the end of the whole process, you leave the store with a loaf of bread and you go, I did it. I completed the mission, and your brain doesn't know the difference between completing that task and climbing Mount Everest. It just knows that you completed a task, and it delivers you the sweet, sweet release of your serotonin and your dopamine. And congratulations, you checked something off the list today. And that was one of the first things I learned. So I'm really excited about the other things that I can learn about this moving forward. And I think a lot of people will be too, because there's nothing wrong with having the need for a therapist to get you some tools that you can carry around for yourself. You might need medication to get you over a hump, or you might need it for the rest of your life, depending on your wiring and your chemicals or whatever. If your brain ain't making it, store-bought's fine. That's great. But the more things you can do for yourself in any given situation, it's only beneficial. It's only beneficial. And breathing gets overlooked so often. And I'm just so excited about discovering this as, this is a whole new set of weapons. This is great. So tell me a little bit about breathing.ai.
Oh yeah, I like to also, you put it so beautifully, and sometimes it just reminded me of how breathing affects every cell of our body, and also the mitochondria, the powerhouses of it. Yeah. So it's not just we're breathing, but it's, first of all, it's also an opening. If we breathe more, especially with depression, anxiety, I was very close, so I was only probably using a small portion of my brain that was always repeated that everything's bad. Yeah. But we all have a human mind body, and if we create more space in our lungs, in our belly, more air flows in, and more oxygen, gets to our cells, and just the mitochondria, the powerhouses. So it's really fascinating research by a research I'm friends with at Columbia University on mitochondria. There was just I think an article in the New Yorker or so. And it's so fascinating how breathing can impact that. And so doing it continues. I invite anybody just to please do it for half an hour a day, breathing techniques, and seeing how they feel it. And then it's also this habit creation. So what we're doing with Breathing AI, our startup, is to really help people to create those habits and to automate those habits. So when you're on the screen right now, oftentimes the screens are going back to feeling disconnected. They're separate from us. They don't adapt to us. So we are creating technologies that help the screens to adapt to our well-being and to notice hey, you need a break. Maybe take a 30-second break or a 2-minute break. just noticing your posture after like sitting on the desk for 2 or 3 hours. Maybe posture is a little bit off. Maybe just a simple deep breath can help. We have color filters that help to reduce eye fatigue, eye strain. We have soothing sounds. So while you're working there, maybe just like the office space or the environment is very noisy. So having like sounds that are calming, sounds like whales or the ocean, falls, any natural sounds, gongs, whatever, like people can choose. So we're providing that as a browser extension right now. So anybody can download that on the Chrome store. And we just launched it actually just a few weeks ago. Have like a global audience right now. I'm very excited to see that like growing every day. And we're also like creating then like machine learning technologies that help to learn through the webcam and machine learning how we're breathing, what our heart rate is. That's a research-based technology, and then how the screens can basically provide us the most personalized experience, the most personalized screen color, breaks, techniques that help us in the moment to feel better, and then basically make it easier so we don't have to, use another meditation app at the end of the day to meditate for 15 minutes or, and then we feel bad that we didn't do it. So really just like those simple reminders, 30 seconds, 2 minutes here. And then at the end of the day, when we go away from the screen, we'll be like, hey, I remember like this breathing exercise or this shoulder relaxation. I want to relax my shoulders more now. Or, what was it earlier? This program reminded me of taking a deep breath. So we remind ourselves easier, because I think it's not like doing 30 minutes there on a Saturday. It's more like simple like short things during the day that help us remind us things. And you so beautifully put it, going into the supermarket, remembering like what were the things that helped me to go through this experience with a lot of people in there. Like similar, we help guide people on their screens, like, hey, what can help you right now to have less eye strain, less headaches, or no headaches at all.
Yeah.
And we're very excited to offer this for like people right now.
Well, I can't thank you enough for talking to me today. This was really, really eye-opening, and I'm excited to dig more into this myself because it's really, really cool stuff. And just we'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful new year, you and all your audience.
Wasn't that awesome? I really love that dude, and I love everything that he's doing. What he's got is a Chrome extension for breathing.ai that you can plug right into your browser, and it does all kinds of really interesting things to help you have a healthier relationship with the computer that you are tied to each and every day. If you want to find out more, go to hannesbend.com. As for me, you can always find me every Thursday, coffeeoversuicide.com/talk. And I'm also doing some fun things with Never Been Fit, never_been_fit on Instagram. A good friend of mine with a brain tumor trying to get himself in better shape, and I'm trying to help. You should go cheer him on. But until next week, don't kill yourselves out there.